All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about Floyd Mayweather Jr., Mayweather Promotions, and a pretty hot statement made by one of the prospects that are at Mayweather Promotions about Floyd Mayweather Jr. stalling his career out because he doesn't believe in him. Richardson Hitchens. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about promotional companies, specifically Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s Mayweather Promotions, and pretty tough criticism that he has received from one of his best prospects, a fighter out of New York named Richardson Hitchens. Excellent fighter. But before I get into that and let you know what he said, welcome back to the channel. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please accept my invitation to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you can get notified of when we release more videos. And thank you guys very much for your support. All right, so this is something that I've been paying attention to for a while. There is a very good fighter out of the New York, New Jersey area. His name is Richardson Hitchens. I do believe that he is of Haitian descent, but he's a fighter that came up, is signed with TMT, Floyd Mayweather Promotions. I think he signed and went pro maybe like back in 2017. He was fighting pretty regularly, and then all of a sudden he pretty much, except for a fight, I think he might have fought one time last year in December. I think he only had one fight in December, one fight in 2021, maybe two fights in 2020. In 2019, I do believe he fought 4 times, but it's just the longer he's been with Mayweather Promotions, the less often we've seen him. At the time that he turned pro, he's one of these top amateurs, a guy that, you know, wasn't necessarily getting the same type of credit or accolades as a Shakur Stevenson, but he's a guy most definitely that was a top amateur and somebody that we really looked forward to seeing what he can do. Looked good in the ring, and a few times that I've seen him in the ring, but he has just put out a statement because he was giving an interview about when the next time he was fighting, and he said, I think he's got a fight date coming up, but he couldn't divulge the fight date. But the comments that he made and his frustration about Mayweather Promotions and how he has been handled over there, I think was something worth noting, because this is something you're starting to hear. I've been starting to hear more and more about, you know, Mayweather Promotions and whether or not those guys really basically have the bandwidth to represent a lot of different fighters. So what Richardson Hitchens said was that, you know, he said that he did not believe that Floyd Mayweather Jr. believed in him. And since Floyd Mayweather Jr. didn't believe in him, he's not getting the fight dates. He's not getting the number of fights that he should be getting. Where if Floyd would focus on him like he does on Gervonta Davis, then, you know, he would be fighting on a regular basis and people would get to actually see his skill set and see what a really good fighter he is. But he does not feel like that is happening right now. And that's obviously evident because of the number of fights that he's been getting. Now, this is a guy that fights at 140 pounds. He fights, you know, in the same weight class as Gary Antoine Russell. Fights, who else is it there? Matias is with the PBC, who's in that weight class as well. Obviously the Josh Taylors, Jose Ramirez, Regis Prograis, Zapata, right? Even Teofimo Lopez is moving up in there. So, you know, it's a pretty thick and hot weight class. And if he does not get the push from his own promoters, more than likely, you know, it's just going to be a difficult situation for him. But this is where, you know, I believe that when people talk about the different promoters, I've been asked about this before. It's like, where do you think fighters, you know, young fighters should sign, right? Now, if you happen to be lucky enough to really catch the eye of Floyd Mayweather Jr., similar to like what Rolly Romero did and Gervonta Tank Davis did, I do believe that absolutely that's a good place to go, as long as you have Floyd Mayweather Jr. going to be actively involved in pushing your career and he gets you to a certain point in time, right? But what I've noticed is, like, it's almost like there's, you have Top Rank, then you have Golden Boy. Just take Top Rank, Golden Boy, and Mayweather Promotions, right? It seems to me that, or the PBC, you can bucket it into the PBC, TBC, TGB, all of that stuff kind of together, right? It seems to me that if you are a prospect that's coming out of the Olympics or something like that, it seems to me that Top Rank really does the best job with young fighters as far as getting them multiple fight dates and getting them into a situation where they can build, fight on a regular basis, and be able to, and able to prove themselves and get their names out there, right? Similar to what they've done. And now you can just go on. There's a lot of young fighters at Top Rank that has happened recently with Top Rank, right? Like Xander Zayas is getting a lot of fights, getting his name out there a lot. Edwin Berlanga, same thing. Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson, right? Got, some of the fighters, obviously some of the Mexican fighters like Navrati. Oscar Valdez is getting a little bit older, but Oscar Valdez got brought up. Even guys like the Puerto Rican dude whose name, is like Felix Verdejo, who's, probably never going to fight again. He got a bunch of opportunities. The problem becomes with Top Rank, from what I can see, is when a fighter really does become an extraordinary fighter and really becomes, a guy that should be featured and can really stand on his own, right? Once you get into that situation, like a Terrence Crawford or like a Floyd Mayweather Jr., when he was there, it seems like it can really hold those guys back down, from getting to that superstar level, right? Like it seems to be doing to Terrence Crawford, like it was doing to Floyd Mayweather Jr., right? But when you go to, when guys if a guy like Canelo Alvarez leaves and goes independent, it makes sense for Canelo to stay with Golden Boy for a long period of time. Same thing with Golden Boy. Like, for example, like Ryan Garcia, who's the other guy over there? Virgil Ortiz is there. They got, I should say Blair Cobb, but I'm not going to say Blair Cobb, right? Like they seem to be in the same kind of situation as Floyd, but kind of like the worst of both worlds, right? Where you can't, once you get big, you don't need them. And it's hard for more than a few of those guys to really be featured. So, Golden Boy really doesn't seem like they have a lot of bandwidth, which is why you never really hear from Rashidi Ellis. The PBC seems like they're having that that bandwidth issue because there's only a certain number of dates that there are, that they have in the PBC for Showtime and for Fox. So maybe that's the issue. Also maybe the issue with Richardson Hitchens specifically is that, he's not getting a lot of knockouts, right? That he can win the fight. He's a good fighter, but if you see over his first, I think he may have 13, 14 fights. I think he may only have 3 knockouts, right? So it may have been the case, ESPN notification, forgive me, that, that similar to like Dimitri Bivol, right? Dimitri Bivol, before this Canelo Alvarez fight was announced, really kind of had, a lot of his momentum kind of stopped because he wasn't getting a lot of knockouts. Richardson Hitchens isn't somebody that's knocking people sideways and really getting, highlight reel after highlight reel. So maybe that's part of the problem, but it's just unfortunate to see that for him because I do really think that he's a good fighter. And I do think what he's saying is pretty much right. And I've heard, Mickey Bay say something to the same effect, that if Floyd Mayweather Jr. doesn't have his eye on you specifically, you can be sitting over there signed with Mayweather Promotions, but never really get a lot of fight dates and make it very hard for your career to really take off. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.